is green and flowers of beauty, filling all with pure delight. And the people, strong and healthy, full of godly, reverent fear. May we ever seek to praise thee for these gifts so rich and rare. It is to these gifts so rich and rare, and to the leveraging of these gifts so rich and rare for global economic success, that this widely anticipated budget statement is dedicated. Over the past 14 years, the Dominican economy has suffered from a chronic lack of economic policy leadership, resulting in low and declining growth, rising unemployment, and increasing poverty. Between 2009 and 2013, the Dominican economy grew at an average of less than 1%. Keep in mind that the target for growth set for these countries in the Eastern Caribbean by the Monetary Council of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, on which the Prime Minister of this country has sat since 2004, that target is 3 to 5%. At no point in the last 10 years has the Minister of Finance and Prime Minister of Dominica engaged the people of Dominica in a conversation about how this economy can reach the target set by the Monetary Council on which he sits on behalf of Dominica. The less than 1% growth performance is well below the 5 to 7% required to generate sustained economic employment and to reduce the incidence of poverty. Ironically, the Dominica Labour Party, the Dominica, in which the Labour Party ministers and their friends are doing extremely well, is the same Dominica in which the people are catching hell. Characteristically, in today's Dominica, we find no jobs, low-paying jobs, no more savings. The unpaid monthly bills are piling up. Land, houses, vehicles, and appliances are being repossessed. The days on hungry bellies continues to increase. No money for school fees and school books and school clothes. In many cases, no options left but to sacrifice dignity as a beggar at the mercy of a corrupt government minister. The economy is in shambles. And we are witnessing the consequent social ills, particularly among the youth, where unemployment is the most acute. This also translates to a growing segment of the population requiring government assistance and the provision of a social safety net. Government's main revenue efforts continue to be focused on the VAT, which was introduced in 2006, and in the last fiscal year accounted for almost 40% of total revenues. This shows a modest decline over the 2009 level, which is a further indication of an economy in decline. At the same time, revenue from grants fell by over 50%, putting further pressure on the government revenues. At the end of 2012, according to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the GDP for Dominica, the total value of goods and services for Dominica, was 1.3 billion, which makes Dominica the smallest economy in the big 6 territories of the OECS. In 5th position ahead of Dominica is St. Vincent and the Grenadines with a GDP of 1.9 billion, $600 million more than Dominica. St. Kitts occupies position number 4 with a GDP of 2 billion. Grenada, with a GDP of 2.1 billion, is in 3rd place. Antigua is in 2nd place with a GDP of 3.18 billion. And St. Lucia tops the group with a GDP of 3.2 billion. For the 12-year period, 2001 to 2012, the annual average growth rate for Dominica was the slowest in the 6 nations of the grouping. In terms of tourism, which we tout as the leading growth engine, when we come to the critical indicator of visitor spending in the 6 OECS tourist destinations for the 10-year period ending 2009, Dominica is at the bottom of the group again, with an average visitor spend of 170 million EC dollars. In all of the other 5 territories, the average visitor spend was in excess of $200 million. You had Antigua at 789 million, St. Lucia 787 million, Grenada 334 million, St. Kitts and Nevis 250 million, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines 212 million. When the Dominica Labour Party took office in 2000, it met exports from Dominica at $150.45 million and imports at $373.21 million, representing a trade deficit of $222 million. That trade deficit has now reached over $500 million EC dollars. So compared to Dominica, what has happened, you may ask, to the trade deficit in other OECS countries, 1999 versus the annual average, 2008 to 2012. Antigua and Barbuda increased by 52%. St. Lucia increased by 52%. Grenada increased by 81%. St. Kitts by 82%. Dominica by a whopping 128%. The annual foreign direct investment inflows for the OECS Big Six for 2013, as reported by the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC, tell a very dismal story for Dominica. Antigua and Barbuda is ahead. In 2013, Antigua attracted $138 million US in foreign direct investments. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, $127 million US. St. Kitts and Nevis, $112 million US. St. Lucia, $88 million US. Grenada, $78 million US. And Dominica, $18 million US dollars. $60 million US dollars below the closest on the list in position number 5. ECLAC foreign direct investment statistics also reveal that since 2000, Dominica is the only country in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union grouping in which foreign direct investment was less than 100 million EC dollars per year. Every other country attracted in excess of 200 million EC per year on average over the period. On the expenditure side, wages and salaries combined with debt interest payments have over the past 5 years accounted for more than 50% of current spending. The capital expenditure program of the government has been focused largely on improving public roads works to the exclusion of feeder roads. Consequently, while Dominica has benefited from an improved road network, the agriculture sector has suffered because of a lack of focus on key infrastructure and the absence of related marketing arrangements. Growing government expenditure combined with stagnating revenue have led to increasing fiscal deficits in a growing debt burden, which, if left unchecked, can only result in further disruptions in the economy, lower growth, and galloping poverty. Fellow citizens of Dominica, no one can deny that our economy has faced and continues to face significant headwinds as the lasting effects of the global financial crisis have found a home in this region. The The drag-on effect of this crisis has been used as an excuse for many years. It continues to rain suffering on our people, in large part due to the paralysis of the current leadership in making corrections to their strategy of treating government's revenue expenditure performance as the economy of Dominica. You heard the minister recently tell you that fact is the backbone of the Dominican economy. So we have been spectators to the worst economic decline in our nation's history, where the private sector is disappearing at an alarming rate. Customs and income tax revenue is at an all-time low, and the self-confessed revenue savior of this government is VAT, a necessary but punitive tax on the poor and suffering people of this country. We have seen our best and our brightest minds flee this country from financial persecution, only to have their talents harvested by our neighbors where they find refuge. Let me say something clearly to you, the people of Dominica. We will not build this country. We will not accomplish our dreams. We will not get to where we want to go if we do not meaningfully engage with the sons and daughters of this country that have migrated to distant lands, but live every day with hope in their hearts that they can find a way from wherever they are to contribute meaningfully to the progress and development of Dominica. We need them as much as they need us. This is their country too. And under the United Workers Party Team Dominica, you will see collaboration with our diaspora brothers and sisters like you have never seen before in the public interest of the Commonwealth of Dominica. United Workers Party Team Dominica has a vision for Dominica. A Dominica in which we have sustainable, harmonized growth and development, in which every Dominican has an opportunity to have an education, proper health care, a job, an affordable home, a reasonable standard of living, and quality of life in a peaceful and secure social environment. We are committed to making Dominica the best place to live, the best place to work, and the best place to enjoy life in the entire global community. To this end, our long-term economic plan will build a stronger, more competitive economy, a fairer society, create more jobs, and secure a better future for Dominica by making Dominica a low-tax jurisdiction open to increased investment dollars across all growth drivers from at home and abroad, backing small business and enterprise with better infrastructure and lower job taxes in an environment of strong market-driven revival of agriculture, tourism, manufacturing, boosting the activities and performance of the construction sector, maximizing the economic benefits of our water, music, and cultural resources, ensuring no-nonsense implementation of renewable energy projects, and embracing ICT as the backbone of our bid to earn a profitable place in the global trade of goods and services, condemning at the same time to the dustbin of history the governance disgrace of having the largest and most inefficient government in the OECS officially unplugged from the responsibility to green, grow, and renew the economy. Adjusting taxes and duties to help hardworking people be more financially secure. Ensuring welfare based on merit and prioritizing employment opportunities for Dominicans first, so the economy delivers for citizens who want to work hard and play by the rules. It will also mean delivering the best schools, skills, apprenticeships for young people so the next generation can succeed in the global race. Consequently, a UWP Team Dominica government will focus its policies on stimulating economic growth, reducing the level of unemployment, and improving budget performance in the near to medium term. In pursuit of these goals, key performance performance indicators will be established and vigorously pursued. We will target a growth rate of 5 to 7% per annum and help create 5,000 new jobs within the first 3 years of our administration. With regards to the budget, we will aim to maintain a current fiscal surplus of between 2 and 6% of GDP on an ongoing basis. Our growth-enhancing policy prescriptions are very clear. The significant slowdown in economic growth in the local economy can be attributed in most part to the decline of the agriculture sector, underperformance in the tourism and construction sectors, and steady decline in foreign direct investment inflows. A starting point in our budget will target increased investment in agriculture with a focus on higher production levels and adding value through agro-processing while widening the productive base. Consequently, in the first year, we'll devote a significant percentage of the capital budget towards the development of the agricultural sector. This will include spending on irrigation systems, greenhouses, and comprehensive feeder road network. Tax and fiscal incentives will also be provided to the private sector to invest in agro and root crop processing plants, as well as a chocolate factory and coffee processing plant. The agriculture sector will be expanded to include the crucial essential oils industry, livestock and dairy and poultry industries. Closer attention and greater resources will also be put into fishing sector to include better equipment for the fishermen and adding value through canning and drying operations. In a further attempt to counter the economic slowdown, we will target the construction sector for quick short to medium term gains. This will take the form of the removal of all taxes and duties on imported construction materials. The initiative is expected to lead to a rebound in that sector, create upwards of 870 new jobs, and help spark growth in the services sector. Growth within the tourism sector continues to be weighed down by a lack of proper air access, high accommodation and related costs, and reduced competitiveness compared to regional countries. While we continue to focus on the building of an international airport to bring long-term relief to that sector, we will work with the hotel and other accommodation operators to address issues of access to financing and high operating costs. Immediately, we will reduce the VAT rate on that sector from the existing 10% to 7.5%. In addition, a special fund will be created within the aid bank to facilitate lending to that sector. Our administration will also place added resources towards the marketing of Dominica as a favored destination. This will coincide with more resources being made available to improve the appeal of activities like that of the World Creole Music Festival, DIFest, the Jazz Festival. Initiatives in sports and health tourism will also be undertaken as part of this overall effort to place Dominica in the hearts and minds of travelers in the global community. A key component of our plans to stimulate growth and create new jobs is the ability to attract foreign direct investment inflows. To this end, we commit ourselves to creating the enabling environment and putting in place the structural reforms through which prospective investors will play their role in helping to move our country forward. We address now the issue of fiscal policy and sustainability. Dominica has very limited control over monetary policy and therefore has to increasingly rely on fiscal policy tools to influence economic activity. This option, however, is constrained by the country's high debt levels and limited access to regional securities market and other market financing. Within this context, we will focus our efforts strenuously at increasing the country's revenue base from the current 30% of GDP to at least 45% of GDP during during the first 3 years of our administration. In addition, we will streamline government spending and increase its efficiency and enter into negotiations with our creditors with a view to obtaining debt restructuring relief. In terms of the tax regimes, this our inaugural budget will lay the foundation upon which this target can be realized. Our tax and fiscal policies will focus on a complete review of the existing VAT, income and other tax regimes through improving efficiency and reducing the burden both on consumers and producers. It is a fact that Dominica's income tax rates are among the highest in the Caribbean region. We believe that there is room to streamline those rates and make available to the employed additional disposable income. Indeed, it is well known that where workers have more income available, this normally translates to increased spending, which can then have a positive impact on growth and eventually higher government revenue streams. We need in Dominica a government that understands money in the hands of people is not a bad thing. We need a government that understands it cannot tax the people into inactivity and poverty. They need disposable income, and the disposable income has to be protected as a key driver of economic activity. Importantly, our review of the tax regime will be geared towards encouraging growth within construction, hotel, manufacturing, and other sectors of the economy. In particular, we will reduce the VAT rates on hotels from the existing 15% and 10% to 7.5%. The taxes on construction materials will be completely removed, and the VAT on items that disproportionately impact the poor will be zero rated. Further, care will be taken to accommodate business willing to contribute to job creation through the easing of the debt burden and an easier and more manageable administrative process. As part of that review, we will reevaluate land and property taxes with a view to removing any excessive burden and also to improve on the number of landowners who can use their land as collateral. We estimate that the tax revenues lost to the implementation of this targeted tax review process will be recovered through the realization of robust and consistent economic growth, which these measures are geared towards achieving. In terms of non-tax revenue and grants, with regards to the non-tax revenue, we will in particular focus on the Economic Citizenship Program to tighten its administrative structure, reporting, and accountability. Other fee structures will be reviewed and its administrative oversight strengthened in an effort to maximize revenue collections. I note that the government is projecting in its estimates of expenditure this year and revenue, it's projecting revenues of $80 million from economic citizenship. That is up from an actual of $50 million in 2013-2014. So in this year, they're hoping to add $30 million to the economic citizenship revenues. Pay attention to that, because the cash cow of the government, the VAT, the revenue is declining. And it is declining because economic activity in Dominica overall is going down. The government does not understand that in order to protect its revenue, you must keep expanding the economy. You must keep creating new opportunities for people to work, have disposable income, and spend that disposable income, which drives the economic activity. Now, over the years, there has been a consistent decline in grant financing administration's inability to secure crucial funding from friendly governments and institutions. We aim to reverse this trend by developing fundable projects built around preserving our pristine environment, developing alternative renewable energy sources, poverty alleviation and job creation, which can secure the backing and support of governments and institutions across the globe. Our guiding principle in that regard is grounded in the belief that we will get the support of the international community in helping us to pursue our development aims based upon clean and transparent governance. Grants currently account for 13.6% of the government's funding needs. With the implementation of our approach, we expect to push this level of financing to at least 20% within the next 3 years. To talk a bit about current and capital spending. Wages and other benefits paid to public servants are an important and growing part of overall government spending. Currently, for every dollar collected in revenue, 45 cents is paid to government workers. We understand the invaluable contribution that public servants make to a country's development and will devote a negotiating team to work together with the unions to smooth out issues of salary increases and non-salary benefits. This is important in ensuring that there are minimum disruptions to our budget process and the overall sustainability of our fiscal program. In our first budget, we will grant increases to public officers. We're making provisions for increases as opposed to the 000 that the government is offering. We will make arrangements, provisional arrangements, in this fiscal year for increases of 1.5% in the first year, 1.5% in the second year, and 3% in the third year, on the understanding that we have not yet had an opportunity to sit down as a government with the public servants of this country. From the outset, we will streamline government spending by reducing waste and improving efficiency within government operations. This will ensure that the current spending on non-wage and interest payments will be kept at a minimum. Spending within the public sector investment program will be strictly monitored through the setting up of a special projects team that will be charged with overseeing project tendering, monitoring, and implementation. Priority within this spending envelope will be given to the investment projects that support our growth agenda. In particular, we will continue to pursue the development of alternative energy sources, including solar, wind, hydro, and geothermal. Successful implementation of these investment projects will lead to reductions in the cost of energy, which is one of the major impediments to growth of buoyant manufacturing and tourism sectors. We are well aware that public sector spending is among the highest in the region at 11 to 12% of GDP compared to the private sector spending, which is the lowest in the region. This situation places severe limits on government's ability to effectively generate growth, given the limited scope for significantly ramping up these investments. As part of the effort to restrict capital spending, we will place increased emphasis on stimulating private sector growth. This will take the form of incentive programs for investors wishing to invest in the identified priority areas of agriculture and tourism. A rapid increase in private sector investment will help spur growth and have the added benefit of freeing up our resources to focus on other areas within the budget. Debt and sustainability of that debt. Dominica has a high debt ratio. It is climbing. It's now at about 80% of GDP. Presents a risk to the country's fiscal sustainability if it continues to rise. Further debt repayments are expected to rise from the existing 3.7% of GDP to 5% in the near to medium term. and this will have the effect of diverting revenue from other productive uses to debt repayment unless there is meaningful engagement with all of our creditors. To this end, we undertake to negotiate different debt relief options with our creditors, including, but not limited to, debt forgiveness. While it is difficult to predict the outcome of these negotiations, we will strive to reduce our payment obligations and the overall debt burden. Further, our goal is to reduce debt to GDP ratio well below the targeted 60% of GDP by 2020 set by the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Going forward, we commit to a prudent debt policy framework that will carefully consider taking on new debt only within the context of the country's development thrust. In other words, debt accumulation will be tied to productive investment projects that can realize returns and minimize the overall impact of the contracted debt. Wherever possible, we'll seek concessional funding for project implementation. Let's talk a little bit about our external sector and export promotion. Because you see, Dominica continues to record massive imbalances of trade, with imports outstripping exports by 20 to 1 now. Over the years, exports have continued to decline while imports continue to rise. This trend is clearly unsustainable and will be addressed with immediate effect. Close attention will be paid to the development of the tradable sector with a view to boosting exports and import switching. Incentives will be provided to the private sector to invest in the processing of fruits, tubers, coffee, cocoa, essential oils, poultry, livestock, and the vital tourism sector. These will take the form of tax and other fiscal incentives and access to concessional financing from the aid bank and other credit facilities set up for this purpose. The goal is to increase exports from its current level of approximately 40 million to 200 million within 3 years. At the same time, we will reduce the import levels by about 10 to 15% through our import switching program. To assist in the successful realization of this target, the Invest Dominica Authority and the Dominica Export-Import Agency, DEXIA, will be reoriented to focus on export promotion and marketing, as well as providing technical support to the private sector concerns that will be granted the incentives. We are committed to structural reforms because in order to accelerate growth in the local economy, we're going to have to undertake bold new initiatives to improve local competitiveness and spur private sector investments from its current low levels. The effort will, for the most part, be concentrated on improving the enabling environment for business growth, easing access to financing, infrastructure development, and comprehensive land and property reform. Indeed, the cost of doing business in Dominica is still relatively high compared to other neighboring countries and has been identified as a key impediment to private sector-led growth initiatives. We have done nothing about that for a decade and more. It is time to get serious. As of this budget, we will get serious. And to improve the ease of doing business, we will undertake the setting up of a one-stop shop within the Invest Dominica Authority. I say that slowly because I'm sure you've heard that before. I'm sure you've heard about this one-stop shop set up time and time again, except that now a group of patriots in governance are serious for a change. So we'll set up that one-stop shop within Invest Dominica. It will streamline the administrative process for the registration and setting up of potential new businesses. This will apply to both local and and foreign-owned concerns, where proactive and exhaustive search for potential investors in identified priority areas will be adopted. For easier access to financing, the aid bank will be reoriented to better identify and make financing available for priority areas. Also, we will facilitate the setting up of a central credit registry, which will make it easier for lending institutions to make financing decisions and review legislation to allow for better recovery of bad debts. Wherever possible, we will seek to increase infrastructure spending on the building of improved road networks to access agricultural lands, better ANC access, and invest in renewable energies in an effort to reduce the prohibitively high cost of energy on the island. Similarly, social expenditure will be redirected from systems programs towards more substantive employment schemes involving worker training and support. The idea is to have in place a sufficiently trained supply of labor to fulfill the requirements for the new jobs coming on stream. In that regard, we will set up a National Employment Bureau with responsibility for worker training and schemes to link potential workers with available job opportunities. Reforms related to land and property issues are crucial in ensuring that productive agricultural lands are utilized for that purpose and that landowners can have access to their land to use as collateral. Consequently, we will review the existing property tax legislation with a view to making it easier to fulfill this goal. It is the case that higher transfer taxes paid up front when property is sold has a cascading effect on the overall cost when the property is resold. There is room for a tax structure that will not add unnecessarily to the cost of investing in productive lands. In addition, issues of access to land by non-residents wishing to invest will also be thoroughly reviewed in order to remove any impediments that could slow down or prevent productive investments in the country. Monetary policy in this region is the purview of the Monetary Council of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Mr. Skerritt, as Finance Minister, sits on that Monetary Council. And the quasi-currency board arrangements limits the lender of last resort function. This, coupled with the fact that there are limited resources to bail out banks and failing financial institutions, argues strongly in favor of the establishment of a deposit insurance scheme to protect bank customer deposits. As such, we will lead a regional approach to the introduction of a deposit insurance scheme to safeguard deposits both within the banking and the credit union system. A key challenge which we faced with is to find ways to better integrate the financial sector in a position to support the development thrust through the availability of and access to credit for the private sector. While it is true that the financial sector in Dominica is highly liquid, this has not translated to increased private sector lending. For some time now, the 3% floor on savings mandated by the Monetary Council through the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union region has effectively limited the pass-through of cheaper lending options to the banks. We believe that if the banks are able to offer lower rates and savings to the customers, then they can in turn lend at relatively lower rates compared to what obtains today. We will therefore proactively engage the Monetary Council with a view to having the floor on savings removed. Our efforts will focus on the strengthening of bank supervision and regulation. This will also be extended to credit unions, which continue to play a critical role with the financial services sector in Dominica. And given the recent history of the collapse of a segment of the insurance sector, which led to the collapse of CLICO, we will move aggressively to enact legislation to protect the interests of clients and to shore up its regulation and supervision. I come now to our governance agenda for change. In the leadership responsibility for Better Dominica, United Workers Party Team Dominica values caring, honesty, integrity, accountability, the pursuit of excellence, continuous improvement, and world-class teamwork. These values will drive our commitment to manage the public servants and services of Dominica to the highest levels of professional success in the public interest. As a first order of business, we will improve the quality of governance by eliminating waste and inefficiency in government spending and optimizing public sector investment resources. In this budget year, we have made provisions, as we indicated earlier, for salary increases to public servants at the level of 1.5% for 2012-2013, 1.5% for 2013-2014, and 3% for 2014-2015. These increases will be funded by savings derived from eliminating wasteful spending on an oversized cabinet of ministers, an army of useless advisors and political appointees, excessive travel, and unnecessarily high utility bills. Cabinet will be downsized from 16 to 10 ministers of government. Positions will be eliminated. Otherwise, there will be no reduction in the current headcount of the public service. With the reduction in ministries, staff will be retrained and redeployed as appropriate to important areas of government responsibility for greater public sector efficiency overall. We will restore the pride and dignity of Dominica as a nation under God, committed to truth, righteousness, justice, the constitutional rule of law, and zero tolerance for crime, violence, and other threats to national and global security. We will stamp out the rampant corruption that illicitly enriches ministers of government and their friends with public money. Cheating away from securing the greatest good for the greatest number. As a top priority, we will pursue constitutional amendments for a fixed election date every 5 years, and a limit of 2 consecutive terms for anyone serving in the office of Prime Minister. Changes proposed by the Integrity Commission for the increased effectiveness of the Integrity in Public Office Act will be implemented within the first 6 months of this budget year. The Act to regulate the conduct of legal professionals and the Act to govern public procurement in Dominica, which have been put to sleep by the Dominica Labour Party regime, will become law within the first 3 months of this budget year. In this budget year, we will transform the highly politicized assistance schemes like Yes We Care and the Public Support Program into genuine, adequately staffed welfare programs delivering quality assistance to citizens in need based on merit. Our foreign policy of enlightened, responsible global citizenship will move away from a 14-year obsession with aid to a tight focus on trade that will build up productive capacity and world market competitiveness. Our sincerity of purpose and responsible world view will consolidate our relationships with traditional partners in development, win new friends, and influence new support for our commitment to be the best. In terms of healthcare, world-class healthcare is an important component in our vision of Dominica as the best place to live, the best place to work, and the best place to enjoy life. Not only will it help to keep our vital human resources at home, it will also encourage our brothers and sisters living overseas to relocate their talents, skills, and special expertise and investments to the land of the birth. In this budget year, we will commence collaborative work with the relevant stakeholders to resolve the national issue of healthcare financing, to empower our offshore medical universities to play a greater role in providing tertiary care, including but not limited to the design, equipment and material sourcing, and operations in respect of hospital facilities. And we will upgrade and modernize our primary healthcare system. Consistent with our commitment to educate our sons and daughters to successfully compete and win in the varied disciplines of global enterprise for self and country, we will, in this budget year, commence a review of our education system aimed at effectively aligning it with the emerging socio-economic realities. We believe, for example, that apprenticeships play a vital role in equipping young people with the skills they need to compete in the labor market and which employers need to grow their businesses. UWP Team Dominica will consult with the private sector on the introduction of an apprenticeship grant for employers scheme. The changing nature of the labor market is demanding higher skilled workers. There are, however, barriers in the education system that may be restricting the supply of these higher skills. To ensure Dominica can compete successfully in the global economy, we will investigate options to support increasing participation in targeted education and training programs. Science and innovation are key drivers of long-run economic growth. UWP Team Dominica will facilitate the commercialization of research and ensure the Dominica economy benefits from a world-class science and technology base. In this budget year, we will begin the process of giving the State College the capability to train our youth to undertake new research in ways of collecting, organizing, and analyzing large sets of data. Big data analysis facilitates businesses to enhance their operating processes, target their marketing better, improve the efficiency of their supply chains, and thereby provide improved services. Let's come now to the growth strategy. And to the words of Ricardo Hausman, Director of Harvard University Center for International Development, and others, they wrote a book called Growth Diagnostics, which argues that, quote here, countries need to figure out the one or two most binding constraints on their economies and then focus on lifting those. By focusing on the one area that represents the biggest hurdle to growth, countries will be more likely to achieve success from their reform efforts. In United Workers' Party Team Dominica, we share that view. Hausman supports the argument with a case study of El Salvador and the Dominican Republic, two countries which have suffered major decline in their traditional growth drivers such as sugar, coffee, and cotton. Similarly, Dominica has suffered major decline in its main export earner, bananas. In the case of El Salvador, the argument is that the country's binding constraint is a lack of innovation and demand for investment. El Salvador has not been able to compensate for its decline in traditional sector with new ideas in other areas. The absence of such ideas explains why growth, investment, and expected returns on investment are low. A lack of self-discovery seems to be the binding constraint on El Salvador's growth. Another country, the Dominican Republic, during the 1980s, as its sugar exports collapsed and its gold resources were exhausted, had to reinvent its economy, and so it did. Like Dominica, however, the DR experienced financial turmoil in 2002-2004, yet, despite the financial turmoil in 2002-2004, the economy did not contract as happened in the financial crises in other countries like our own Dominica, for example. Why? The answer seems to lie in the importance of the country's main drivers of growth: tourism, the assembly of imported component part for re-exportation, and remittances from the diaspora. Rather than trying to fix everything at the same time, the government concentrated on rekindling the main drivers of growth. And so, we talk now of rekindling growth in Dominica's economy. United Workers' Party Team Dominica's strategy for immediately rekindling growth in the economy is to remove the most binding constraints on the most important growth sectors, the sectors of tourism, agriculture, construction, foreign direct investment, and of course, our diaspora partners. Low returns on investment seems to be the most binding constraint on all five growth sectors. A low return on investment also seems to explain why Dominica attracts low-level foreign direct investment, much lower than anywhere else in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. In the tourism sector, the most critical factors leading to low profitability on investment, rundown properties, and eventual closure are low room occupancy and high taxes. In the agriculture sector, the most critical factors leading to low profitability on investment, abandonment of farms, and eventual sale of farmlands, disorganized markets, high production costs, and inadequate technical support to farmers. In construction, the most critical factors leading to low returns on investment, both to the homeowners and contractors, high taxes on materials, and high property transfer fees. Besides the financial support, which the diaspora gives to their families. Much of the investments by the diaspora have been in tourism, agriculture, home construction. Thus, they fall victim to the constraints leading to low returns on investment, forcing many of them to abandon Dominica and return with no encouraging news for other diaspora members. In the case of FDI, in addition to the constraints mentioned, corrupt practices by government officials and their agents in awarding government supply and economic growth, job creation. In the medium term, as Team Dominica rebuilds itself and states to support new innovative ideas in information communication technology, financial and professional services, manufacturing, renewable energy, water industry, sports, music, cultural industries, Dominica's economy will enter an orbit of sustained growth at a level of 5 to 7%, generating thousands of good-paying jobs annually. I come now to the budget estimates for 2014-2015. At some point, brothers and sisters, in this fiscal year, the United Workers' Party Team Dominica will be asked by you, the people of Dominica, to take the reins of your government. Government is indeed continuous, and so we have avoided the option of building a zero-based budget in favor of assuming the government's estimates of revenue and expenditure with a few adjustments to facilitate the specifics of our growth agenda. In 2014-2015, the government is estimating, the government system that is, estimating that recurrent revenue will be $416.964 million. Current grants, $5 million. Capital grants, $75 million. Loans, $38.3 million. Other inflows, $5 million, for total revenue of $540.3 million. The expenditure is forecasted, compensation, $143 million. Operating expenses, $168.3 million. The debt service, $23.2 million. Project expenses, $173.8 million, for a total expenditure of $513.6 million. The primary surplus is $11.6 million. The debt amortization is $38.8 million. The overall deficit is $12.1 million. The overall expenditure, capital and recurrent, $552.4 million. For the purposes of our own budget statement and policy prescriptions, we have assumed recurrent revenue at $417 million. Current grants at $5 million, and we're increasing the capital grants by $50 million to $120,428. The loans remain the same in terms of revenues. We are not putting any loans on what the government estimates to contract, $38.3 million. And other inflows remain the same at $5 million. On the expenditure side, in terms of the compensation, we are increasing the compensation to $154.6 million, up from $148.3 to cater for the increase to public officers. We are reducing the other operating expenses from 168.3 million to 158.3 million. The debt service remains the same. The project expenses will increase in order to facilitate some additional items of capital expenditure that drives our growth program. So we're increasing the project expenses from 173.8 million to 225.9 million for total expenditure of 562.1 million. Our total revenue is 585.3 million compared to 540.3 million. We will record a primary surplus of $8.1 million. The debt amortization is the same figure. Our overall surplus deficit, our overall deficit will be 15.6 million compared to 12.1 million on the government side, and our overall expenditure will be $600 million, $600.9 million compared to $552.4 million. The difference there is the additional expenditure we'll have to undergo in year one to fund our growth initiatives that will create the jobs and spur us to a new level of economic activity. The government has simply been too shy to do what is right for the economy. Because they're doing well, they forget the other people of Dominica are catching hell, and things need to be done. This next segment of the budget statement, the growth and employment initiatives, is dedicated to the young people of Dominica, especially those who have lost hope in that long night of pessimism and broken dreams visited on them by the outgoing government. Finally, the neglected, misunderstood, and taken for granted young people of this country will enter an era in which they will have jobs. Their parents will have jobs. Their brothers and sisters will have jobs. Their girlfriends and boyfriends will have jobs. They will eat bread from the sweat of their brows. They will be their own people. They will spend their own money. They will make their own life-building decisions. From today of honest work, they will create yesterdays of pleasant memories and tomorrows of brilliant hope. Team Dominica also dedicates its growth agenda to our senior citizens, who can now rest assured that their children and grandchildren no longer face a future of crippling uncertainty. The new economy will grow by 6 to 7%, 5 to 7% per year, and it will rest on the growth drivers of agriculture, tourism, manufacturing, information communication technology services, financial services, construction, renewable energy, sports industry, water industry, cultural industry. This new economy will deliver 5,000 jobs in the first 3 years. We have a number of growth and employment initiatives on which significant money will be spent to to ensure proper execution in this budget year. We're looking to spend an amount of over $50 million more than what the government, this current outgoing government, proposes to spend. But we'll be doing that in the productive areas of manufacturing, renewable energy, tourism and agriculture, construction, sports, culture, and music. I go down the list of the fiscal impact of these measures that are proposed, and I look at the jobs to be created. And already in the first year, we are looking at 3,000 jobs. We are looking at 3,000 jobs in the first year. Now, we need to spend a little time on tourism. We need to spend a little time on tourism. It's everybody's business, right? And we are all Dominican. Are you? The United Workers' Party sees the tourism sector as one of the major growth and job creation sectors of this economy. To achieve the required growth and create the necessary jobs for people, we will immediately set upon a strategy to increase hotel occupancy by 25 to 40% in this season, to increase cruise visitors by 50% in the second season, and to increase spending per visitor. The multiplier effect of this increase in tourism income to the hotels, its employees, and the increased income it creates directly to restaurants, tour guides, vendors, nightclubs, tour and taxi operators, and the indirect income to musicians, beauty parlors, spas, the increased sale of farmers, vegetables, and meat, the increased sales to fishermen for their fish, more than compensates government for the revenue forgone in reducing the VAT on hotel operations from 10 and 15% to 7.5%. At the same time, the UWP government will embark on a campaign to clean up Dominica's name internationally in order to improve Dominica's investment climate and to attract major and international investment into Dominica's tourism sector. Our vision for the sector, to seek to maximize the benefits of tourism without compromising its social values while ensuring the preservation of our environment and ecosystems. This vision promotes participatory development, one that requires consultation, dialogue, and sharing of information among stakeholders. It therefore constrains us, for example, to engage in meaningful consultation and dialogue with the people of Loda, Trafalgar, Mont Prosper, Watton-Waven, Shawford, Copthall, Bath Estate, Goodwill, Newtown, and Greater Roseau before embarking on any large-scale geothermal project for export in the most sensitive ecological area of Dominica. And I remind you that it is this holistic vision which led the United Workers' Party government to be the first to make Dominica the first nation in the Eastern Caribbean to attain a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the natural category. On that auspicious occasion, way back in 1998, when under the United Workers' Party government, Dominica's Mont Trapito National Park was inscribed as a World Heritage Site, here's what the director of the UNESCO World Heritage Center had to say about Dominica and the UWP government. Quote, "Your country, the Commonwealth of Dominica, was applauded by all participants for setting high standards for the whole region, high standards of conservation for efficiency of work. I would like to wish, before the handing of the certificate, that Dominica remains an island of hope in the stormy time of globalization, an island of example for action in conservation and sustainability, setting an example to other countries, because unspoiled nature and authentic cultural properties have become, in a world of increasing detraction, rare, everyday rare, more rare than yesterday, and therefore accumulating more and more value just by the lapse of time. And I think there you have a responsibility to keep this very prestigious and unique place. The director of UNESCO's World Heritage Center back in 1998. We have a 5-step mission to rescue tourism and jobs in Dominica. It includes, first of all, the enactment of timeshare legislation that will fill hotel rooms and solve the finance problems. You know, timeshare is one of the most powerful tourism marketing and financing strategies which has been used across the Caribbean and the world to develop tourism. Timeshare legislation will give hotel owners access to this guaranteed tool of success to market and finance their properties and get themselves out of the debt trap in which the hotel sector is presently caught. Timeshare will give the local private sector a guaranteed strategy for high room occupancy. Timeshare will generate the necessary capital for locals to upgrade their properties, build additional rooms, while at the same time they will reduce their present burdensome debt or even become free of debt. When the United Workers' Party left government 14 years ago, the National Development Corporation already began drafting timeshare legislation based on research of various timeshare legislations in the Caribbean. Only blind claimants of tourism management skills and competence could have been in government for more than 14 years and not enact timeshare legislation. Over the last 14 years, many of our Dominican individuals and families have invested all their family savings, plus taken additional bank loans to invest in tourism. Sadly, rather than reaping the fruits of their investments and their hard work, the present DLP government, bad tourism policies of high taxes, insufficient destination marketing, and inadequate air access, and the government's neglect of basic things have broken most of these investors, crippled tourism-dependent communities, and brought Dominica's entire tourism sector to its knees. In the St. Joseph to Coleo area alone, we can point to the failure of several major hotels, the Layo River Hotel, the Castaways Hotel, the Laurel Club Hotel, among others. This recent tourism season, the Watton Waven community, which depends heavily on the tourism tours to the village to Trafalgar Falls, has been down on its knees. Tours to Trafalgar Falls can no longer pass through Watton Waven because a critical bridge, which was a priority for replacement 14 years ago, eventually failed at the beginning of this tourist season. And for the entire season, the DLP government made no effort to repair this bridge. Our local hotel owners, taxi operators, vendors, tour guides, and local communities are literally crippled. Change is a must. We have to cut taxes on tourism to make it competitive. So there's a transfer fee, 10% transfer fee, that under our affordable and available housing package we have indicated will be dropped. That is also going to apply to tourism properties. Let me give you an example. Right now, a Dominican investor who owns, let's say, 5 to 10 acres of land valued at $1 million or $2 million, and would like to put it into a company as his equity in a tourism project, whether by himself or with another local or foreign partner, he would have to pay the government between $100,000 and $200,000 just to transfer the land to the company. Under United Workers' Party Team Dominica, this burdensome fee will be removed. And And that will enable more locals to invest their lands in tourism. We spoke about lowering the VAT on hotels, hotel operations, to make us more competitive and in line with other OECS islands. Dominica, in the OECS, this government of Dominica is the one which charges the highest VAT on tourism. And here's something that will, here's something, you know. Imagine that when Discover Dominica brings a group of travel writers or filmmakers to promote the destination, Dominica. They usually go to the hotels and ask them to donate complimentary rooms. However, unlike in the other OECS islands, the DLP government then turns around and asks the hotel owners to pay the VAT on the rooms they gave to the government free of charge. To host the travel writers, you know. So if a hotel were to give 2 rooms for 5 nights, that would be 10 nights. At a cost of US $150 per night, the hotel would be giving the government US $1,500 or 4,000 EC. The government then turns around and charges the hotel 10% VAT on the value of the rooms they gave to the government free of charge. The government even charges hotel VAT on service charge, which goes directly to staff, and staff uniforms, which is a benefit to hotel staff. And we will deal with that. We need a trade and marketing center in the French islands of Guadeloupe and Martinique. We will, in order to take maximum advantage of the new European Partnership Agreement, EPA, UWP Team Dominica will establish a permanent, professionally staffed, all year round Dominica Trade and Marketing Center in the French islands to promote tourism and tourism investment in Dominica, and also to market Dominica's craft, Dominica's music, Dominica's culture, Dominica's agriculture. The Caribbean is our core market, accounting for 50% of Dominica's stay-over visitors, more than half of which come from the French islands. Dominica's present tourism marketing budget is about 4 million. We are going to add 6 million to that this year. We will more than double it this year, because there is a nexus, there's a connection between how much people know about us, how much they hear about us, so that they can come to fill the rooms. And if the rooms are competitively priced, more and more of them will come. More rooms we fill, more people we employ, more people we employ, more money in their hands to spend, more money in their hands to spend, more tax revenue for the government. I will explain that over and over again because the government does not get it. The present policy of sending trade missions to the French West Indies just before World Creole Music Festival, just before Carnival, and a few other times in between, is not the most cost-effective way of growing the French Caribbean market. Dominica is situated in the middle of the European Union, right here in the Caribbean, and it needs permanent national presence in the French Caribbean market to deal with tourism marketing, to deal with agricultural marketing, to deal with investment promotion, marketing and entertainment. Culture and other services are provided for under the European Partnership Agreement. We also people, and we're going to give them a fair share of the tourism dollar. Serious business. Claudia Sanford, our deputy political leader, United Workers' Party Team Dominica, candidate for Kalinago territory, and our team leader on tourism, culture, and Kalinago affairs policy development, has clearly articulated the critically important role of the Kalinago people in the development of Dominica's tourist industry. We've had surveys over the years that have revealed that when they were asked the question, quote, what made you come to Dominica? More than half of the visitors say, I came to see the Carib Kalinago people and experience a bit of their culture. UWP Team Dominica will promote Kalinago culture and give the Kalinago people a fair share of the tourism dollar. Will tap the huge government funding and other resources for indigenous people to beach sites, hotels, and other development initiatives in the Kalinago territory and Atkinson. We will build a 5-star eco and heritage resort in the Kalinago territory. We'll expand the marketing of the traditional Kalinago crafts industry. We'll develop a jewelry and precious stones industry in the Kalinago territory, including gold and silver craft, jasper, turquoise, and amber. We'll develop a leather craft and tanning industry in the Kalinago territory. We'll protect Kalinago intellectual property and branding through copyright and trademarks. You have to understand, you have to understand that right now, there are countries that do not have Kalinago, that are importing Kalinago to show to tourists. We have the real deal. It is one of our blessings as the Isle of Beauty, the Isle of Splendor. The fifth thing we're going to do to revive tourism is to bring back Carnival Cruise Line weekly calls. We will do it. Due to the outgoing government's neglect of basic amenities for the vendors, the taxi operators, and tour guides, Dominica lost its best cruise line, Carnival Cruise Line, in 2010. Carnival Cruise Line used to visit the island every week, bringing over 150,000 cruise passengers per year to the island. Carnival ships were the biggest buyers of bulk water from the Wasco, and the Carnival passengers were the best customers for the vendors. UWP Team Dominica knows the key people at Carnival and what they want to see done to get back Carnival. UWP Team Dominica will make the bayfront improvement and the improvement of the cruise passenger experience on the island a top tourism occupancy by 25 to 40%, which will enable our hotels, restaurants, taxi operators and tour operators, vendors, musical bands, entertainments, and gifts and souvenir shops to create hundreds of new jobs. We will convert the Dexia building to a duty-free facility. We will create a heritage store of the Barboon building. We'll transform the Rosa Market into an agro-tourism market. We'll build facilities on the bayfront for vendors, and we'll create a water park at the Botanic Gardens. As part of its strategy for increasing returns on existing investments in tourism, attracting new investments in key growth sectors, and creating sustainable economic growth and jobs, the United Workers' Party Team Dominica will complete and deliver the international airport which it started in 1997 during its very first term in office. Since gaining independence, every administration has advocated intentions to construct an international airport. However, the United Workers' Party is the only party that has gone beyond talk and study to concrete undertaken the following actions towards construction of an international airport. It established public-private partnership financing model and obtained broad regional and international support. We brought together, actually, a coalition of regional and international donors, including all CARICOM and CARIFORUM countries, the European Union, Venezuela, Cuba, the Republic of China and Taiwan, the Caribbean Development Bank, the Canadian Development Agency, DFID, Airport de Paris, Agence Française de Développement, and World Bank and commercial banks and private investors to support Dominica's airport financing and associated hotel and tourism development. We identified a technically feasible site and purchased the site. We purchased it by private treaty and paid in full for approximately 448 acres of land from 161 landowners in the Woodford Hill to Wesley area for runway and airside facilities. We allocated agricultural land to settle displaced farmers. We purchased and paid in full for Londonderry Estate, approximately 900 acres, for hotel development and resettlement of displaced farmers in particular. We prepared detailed design and related studies for construction and international certification of the international airport. We designed, allocated the money, and were at the tender stage for the construction of a new Londonderry education complex to replace the St. Andrews Secondary School, which was impacted by the new airport, international airport. As part of the basket of funding we already had in place, over 100 million EC dollars in grants and soft loans towards the construction of the international airport. We had commitments from friendly governments, Venezuela and Cuba, to provide assistance in kind by way of equipment and fuel for Earth movement. Additionally, reputable international financiers and development companies, including the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, East Industries, and Four Seasons Hotels, had given firm commitments to construct high-end hotels and related tourism development projects to coincide completion of the international airport. Notwithstanding promises in the DLP manifestos from 2000 and the Prime Minister's 2010-2011 budget address to construct an international airport, to date, no meaningful action has been taken by the DLP after almost 15 years in office to fulfill its promises to the citizens of Dominica. Instead of continuing the outstanding work of the UWP towards construction of our international airport, this DLP government spent in the region of $110 million on airport upgrading and night landing at Melville Hall, yet failed to meet our short to medium term air access needs. The massive spending at Melville Hall by this incompetent DLP administration has not positively impacted visitor arrivals by air to Dominica and by extension or stayover tourism. The upgraded Melville Hall Airport with night landing, commissioned in 2010. Annual visitor arrivals before 2010 at Melville Hall were generally higher than the number of arrivals since the advent of night landing at that airport. This failed DLP air access strategy has also created a costly nuisance for motorists commuting the only main public road at Melville Hall. Additionally, lands purchased by the UWP for international airport development remain abandoned. Recognizing the urgency and the great importance of improved air access and an international airport to sustainable economic advancement of Dominica, UWP Team Dominica will immediately, upon taking office, institute the following measures. We will facilitate the establishment of a Dominica-based airline and negotiate with LIAT and other carriers to provide express service and direct air services between Dominica and 13 existing international airports located north San Juan and south Caracas of Dominica in order to secure same-day transit into Dominica from major gateways in the US and Europe in particular. In pursuit of this objective, the government of the United Workers' Party Team Dominica will work closely with local investors having similar interests, the diaspora, hoteliers, farmers, and traders of agricultural produce, as well as friendly governments. The establishment will establish the Dominica International Airport Development Project Management Office with responsibility for updating detailed studies commissioned by the UWP administration for the construction of the international airport. Settlement of all issues surrounding lands purchased by the UWP for the construction of the international airport and related developments. Mobilization of financing and finalization of arrangements for construction and commissioning of the international airport. Having promised a free pie in the sky for 15 years, when it comes to building an international airport, the outgoing government has lost all credibility. I turn to agriculture and fisheries. The United Workers' Party Team Dominica Agriculture, for us, agriculture is central and critical to Dominica's short and long-term development strategy. As such, tremendous effort will be placed on the revitalization of this sector in order to stimulate the rural economy. This will involve improved land management, direct support to farmers and fishermen, technology deployment and improvement in agricultural and fisheries infrastructure in order to enhance productivity and production volumes. In addition to revitalizing or traditionally successful agricultural products, we will reopen the sector for successful niche business in select global markets for high-value products like coconut oil, cocoa, essential oils like bay oil, vetiver, patchouli, lemongrass, and wellness herbs like medical marijuana, mint, cumin, and basil. Overall, beginning this year, we will work towards the goal of doubling agricultural production volumes within 3 years in the areas of fisheries, horticulture, food crops, livestock, in order to ensure food security and increased export earnings. In agriculture, we will be opening up 1,000 acres of bananas and plantains in the first phase and will be providing input support for first crop cycle. We intend to spend $10 million on that initiative, and we are satisfied that it will deliver 800 jobs. You heard the number? 800 jobs. We told you about the tourism marketing plan, where we'll be adding $6 million onto the tourism promotion budget for Dominica and reducing the VAT on hotel operations. The increased occupancy that we are targeting will give rise to a situation where these hotels will be able to employ an additional 900 people. Are you counting? 900 in the hotel sector, 800 in the agricultural sector. In year one, 1,017 and counting. Now, let's talk a little bit about manufacturing, agro-processing, and natural resources. Because here is where we recognize largely untapped potential of our agriculture, our natural resources, and the light manufacturing sector. And work is going to commence this year towards attaining our true economic potential. We will diversify the economy through innovation, the nurturing of infant industries, and facilitating the addition of value to the supply chains of these infant industries, from product sourcing to production to delivery. The encouragement of import substitution business initiatives will reduce the country's massive trade deficit, build capacity for world trade, and create much needed jobs. The goal is to increase Dominica's export earnings by 100% within the targeted economic subsectors within the first 3 years of a UWP administration. In this regard, we will, starting this year, remove the VAT and other taxes on raw and packaging materials. We'll provide access to low-cost and venture capital financing, training and technical assistance support to new and existing businesses in light manufacturing, in agro-processing, quarrying, and water export. In manufacturing, we're also looking at partnering with a private sector player to ensure a bulk and bottled spring water export and some brand development work in that regard. We're looking as well, as we said earlier, at a root crop processing facility, which will be a private sector investment, and the essential oil and herbal industry development, which will be private sector driven as well, alongside a modern fruit juice processing facility. The jobs in that regard, 105. Now, in construction and housing, very important area. We are fully committed to the revitalization of our construction industry, to the development of an affordable and climate resilient housing stock and infrastructure in a transparent and responsible manner. We will rehabilitate and expand Dominica's infrastructure through a government public sector investment program and the public-private sector partnerships. Furthermore, we will help stimulate the construction sector through policy reform in order to boost economic growth, generate new jobs, improve housing conditions, instill pride, and ensure the health and safety of our people. Side by side with our responsibility to provide housing support to those in need, we will develop a housing market that will make it easier for employed young Dominicans to own their own homes. We will develop, repair, and enhance road networks, modernize the seaports, create a modern industrial park using renewable energy, and build climate resilient supporting structures such as bridges, sea, and retaining walls. In this fiscal year, we will remove the duties on construction and building materials, facilitate the provision of low interest rate loans for housing, commercial and industrial development through the Aid Bank and other financial institutions, and we'll engage policy initiatives, foreign policy initiatives, that with friendly governments and donor agencies in order to finance public infrastructure development projects and enforce transparent public sector procurement procedures. The UWP Team Dominica approach to housing and infrastructure will see in this fiscal year the adoption of a proactive maintenance program for public buildings, bridges, walls, public and feeder roads. The implementation of the Road Reinstatement Project, the rehabilitation of dilapidated housing stock, the review of rent control legislation, the review of utility service providers' policies with respect to housing development, the adoption of a sustainable and transparent squatter regularization program, and the review and strengthening of public assistance housing programs. We'll also be focused on initiatives to lower interest rates and increase home mortgage financing, reviewing of current land use policies, legislation and regulations, as well the rehabilitation and expansion of agricultural feeder road network. In construction, in the areas of carrying forward the housing policy and pursuing public works and the Rosary Reinstatement Project, we are budgeting significant capital expenditure for that. The jobs we expect in that sector, 925. So 105, 925, that's 1,030, 900, that is 1,930, and 800, 2,730 jobs. Year one. The proposals in this budget are targeted at energizing the economy and getting our country back to work. In this regard, as I'm sure you'll have noticed, we have not been hesitant to provide tax relief because we are confident that the economic activity generated as a result will return to the Treasury the tax revenue initially lost. To provide some relief to citizens reeling under a burdensome cost of living, we will zero rate the VAT on a broader range of basic foods. You need to have some more money in your pocket. Again, with close to 3,000 people in new jobs and spending on a broad range of goods and services, we see no risk to government's recurrent revenue, which is the reason why, for so many years, the Labour Party has kept the people of Dominica under the weight of an unmanageable cost of living. We commend this budget to the people of Dominica as the starting point in a program of economic recovery that is long overdue. I close with the final stanza of our national anthem. Come ye forward, sons and daughters, of this gem beyond compare. Strive for honor, sons and daughters, do the right, be firm, be fair. Toil with hearts and hands and voices, we must prosper, sound the call, in which everyone rejoices.